Right, so yeah, hi everybody. So yeah, this morning I'm just going to go speak to you for a short while. I've got a couple of, well, two bits to it really. I'm just going to talk through a case study, which is one of the schemes that Leeds completed a short while. Well, it's in 2018 actually, that was completed. And then I just want to speak actually about the processing of DFGs. And the second bit of it, I've just put some slides up. There's no conclusion. I'm not really particularly trying to overly make a point. They're more around discussion, and it's more about giving an operational view from a DFG budget holder. I know on some of these sessions and some of the webinars, there's quite a lot of OT people are on the line. And I suppose for those OTs, it's just about seeing sometimes the difficulty in decisions that DFG budget holders have to make. So first of all, I just want to talk about this case study that we've carried out in Leeds. Now, this was a child who is on the autism spectrum. Now, I'm not a medical person, but this child I would obviously describe as being at the far end of, if you've got a scale, it's at the far end. He was extremely mobile. You know, his condition made him, you know, quite difficult to control, as you will see from some of the information and detail that we give you. So this child lived in a council property when we became aware of him through our OTs, and we started working with our OTs towards a scheme that we thought would fit the bill. The first thing that we did when we were around to see him, we realised that the house where he wasn't going to be suitable. So we had to find another house which appeared on the other side of the city, and the family were happy to move there. And I've now just got a set of pictures. I'm going to run through them reasonably quickly. A lot of them are relatively self-evident. So this is the back garden, and it's quite a sizable back garden. And we had to move about 50 tons of soil from there. And you'll see this is the house, and you can see now the extension that we're building, which is a two-story extension, which had a sort of living room and a bedroom and an ensuite as well in it. And you can see the back garden, all the soil's been leveled out now. And here we go at the back. So the fence is now going up. We've got tarmac down. You'll see that we've put metal posts in, so you know that they won't rot. And we've got wooden non-climbable cladding, so he can't actually climb up and get over. What's happening here is we've got an area that's just at the back of the house, which is all tarmac at the moment, which was the sort of play area. And then we have the second area, as you can see, where the trucks parked, and then there's gates to go on. Now, that's because the child would be driven into the area to the rear. One of the parents get out and shut the gates, and then the child would come into that area, but then they'd come through into this other area and the gate would be shut. If we had the whole thing and the car was there, the child would probably climb up on the car and, you know, maybe get out like that. So there had to be a sort of second secured area, as it were. So these are, yeah, you can see these are when it's finished. You can see the way the fence is. So there's nothing to grab hold of, nothing to climb up, and you can see out. That's the side where we've got, you know, you can see a PIR there with the floodlights that are at the back as well. And there's the gates that we put on, again, sort of difficult to climb, but hopefully the child would be through at the area at the back of the house. So that was the completed extension from the outside, and then going inside. Now, one of my officers who was dealing with this particular case is a fantastic surveyor, and he's been doing this a lot of years, and he really took a lot of time over this case. He spent time with the OTs, with the child in the house, and he also actually went into school to see the child interacting at the school he went to, just to see, about the movement of the child and how he behaved. So this is the room at the back of the property, and you can see here that we've got internal secondary glazing. You can see the UPVC white on the outside, and then the wood inner. You can see that it's absolutely smooth. There's nothing you can grab hold of there. The openings are just with very small keys into you see some very small circles there, maybe on the windows. So they're opened like that, but there's nothing for the child to get hold of there at all. We've got a non-climbable radiator cover that was put together with a company, so they're fitted on all the radiators. And across all the walls, you can see that they're of a flat, washable, hard, clean surface, and it's sealed to the floor, very much like you get in a sort of wet floor shower, or as you might see in hospitals and places like that. So there's nothing here for the child to grab hold of or really be able to climb on, or so that the child is safely contained in the room. Just a picture of the shower. Again, yeah, all sealed up. Clearly, we didn't use tiles in the shower area, anything like that, because if there was smearing took place, we wanted a surface that is totally washable. You wouldn't want a grout in there or anything like that. So you can see that the actual shower area, it just runs around into all the rest of the walls as well. So there's no break at all. This is the bedroom. And you can see that there's a huge mat, soft padded mat on the floor and on the wall. So you've got the window again, you've got the radiator cover, and now you've got the walls covered. Clearly, this is obviously because the child is very, very mobile, would often run in and headbutt and hard surfaces. So in his bedroom here, there was a total protection and a room that he could go to and be safe. I think from talking, I know we have safe spaces and things like that. I don't think it was deemed practical for this particular child, and we did a sort of bespoke bedroom where a company, I think they were called Spacecraft, I think they are called, where they came in and actually built this and measured it and built it in there. And you can see here, this is some of the detail around the doors in that room, on the other side of that room, into cupboards, and where the soft padding has been built around the doors. There were handles on the doors, and we changed those to knobs, because if he got hold of a handle, he would try and rive it off probably. Whereas with a knob like that, it's a little bit more difficult to break it in that sort of fashion. So you can see there's switches. So obviously a lot of the electrical installations were lifted up out of the way, so we couldn't get at them. They're also, what those three switches there is just showing is that we actually put individual circuits into each room. So you could isolate a room, you could turn that room off. Say the child was in the particular room and there were still electrics there, lights and things like that, that you could actually turn it off and isolate the electrics from that room, and you knew that the child can't hurt himself by accessing any electrical installation at all. The doors, all the doors had obviously glass in, so the adults can see through, and you can look into another room without going in and seeing what's happening. So all the doors. This is the kitchen. It doesn't show, and I'm not even sure they were all on at this stage, but all the doors had individual locks on that obviously a child couldn't open. So all the cabinets, doors, kitchen cupboards, they all had to be sealed and locked, so the child couldn't get into any of them. Okay, so that's just a quick whiz round some of the pictures from that property. So it was a council property, this. It wasn't actually DFG money as such. It actually came from the council's housing revenue accounts, because it's a council property and Leeds City Council funds their own adaptations. So yes, look at that, £167,000, a huge amount of money that was spent. You know, schemes like that, it's the back garden. You wouldn't think, you think, oh, well, yeah, there's quite a lot of work done. To actually put a scheme like that together, it just takes a large amount of money. There was a large amount of work needed in the back garden. And then you can see there's, you know, a double-story extension, everything in it, and all the bits and pieces that have been done in there. So there's a huge amount of money. However, full-time care for this particular child, I think it was quoted in the region of 280 to 300,000, and that would have been full-time residential costs and all the 24-hour staffing supervision that this child would have taken. So you can see that you can work it out. I think in 7 months, Leeds City Council had saved the money off this particular case. So that huge outlay, if this child had gone into care in 7 months, we would have been saving money off this, you know, rather large amount of money. And just to say, the scheme was completed in 2018, and the child still lives with the parents in their home today. Now, okay, that might not, I'm not sure that how long that will possibly last, but certainly at the moment, you can see that Leeds City Council have saved, well, it's almost 6, it's almost 7 figures potentially from keeping that child in his home. Okay, so just tell you a little bit about Leeds is that we've had historically a very, what I would call, buoyant budget. And this, going back quite a lot of years now, has been because Leeds City Council has put a large contribution. I would say about maybe 10 years ago now, we got, our budget was 1/3 of it was from the government and 2/3 of it was from the council. So you can see that we were, you know, the council was contributing quite a lot of money, which was absolutely fantastic. If you link with that we've got a very flexible regulatory reform order, private sector housing assistance policy. It's written in a very open-ended way, very flexible, that allows us to make you know, very individual decisions. We're just rewriting it at the moment again, just updating it. But that's really important because it allows us to spend money in all sorts of ways because we're not tying ourselves down by that particular policy. And that's obviously enabled us to commit, you know, large sums of money to discretionary aid every year. We can meet our mandatory duty, and then we can go on and do discretionary aid. And that, of course, has given us the, you know, the possibility to be able to do all these schemes. And we have done quite a number of schemes for children with challenging behaviour over the years now. Okay, so I know that's at one end of the scale there. We're talking about, you know, extensions that have cost a lot of money. But if you look at right at the other end of the scale, you know, you could say about handrails. Well, you know, a handrail saves somebody falling and breaking their hip. And if you break your hip and go in for an operation and then rehab, I know some of the people on this line will probably know how much that all costs, but I would suggest it's in tens of thousands possibly. So if you take from the smallest adaptation to the largest adaptation, I think we can all say that adaptations make sense. You'll have seen various reports and publications, articles. I've read many over the years about £1 on adaptations saves so many pounds in whatever it is, residential care, A&E, you know, whatever, rehab, all these other things. So there's no question. I think we slightly disagree. It's very difficult to measure exactly what those savings are at times, but I think it's quite clear that the adaptations do make sense. If any of you have ever listened to Professor Luke Clements from Leeds University, you have on any of the webinars with foundations and other places, you'll know that he gives a talk about where you know, the money is put into adaptations and where it saves from numerous budgets, not just council, other outside bodies as well. And I suppose the government must agree that adaptations make sense because, as we're probably all aware, the budgets have been rising and rising, and certainly last 4, maybe 5 years, they've gone up nationally from 220, and they're right up this year to £573 million. And that's another 68 million that's been added on this year. So, you know, with that sort of information, you know, I think we're all agreed, adaptations keep families together and they save money. Now, I'm moving a little bit now into my job, as an operational manager. at Leeds City Council. So this is just my view, and this is just something, you know, just expression of what happens to us, just so other people might have a bit of an idea. So as a budget holder and as a service here, processing disabled facilities grants and doing adaptations in public properties, we get a huge amount of documents sent to us, and I've just put a list of some of them. It's bigger than that, but there's some of them that all DFG budget holders will have received. And it's information from medical experts and professionals, individuals that know that particular child. And as I put at the bottom, that is all sound advice, and obviously a lot of guidance that you'll read, and I'm sure I've read it in the foundation's guidance, is that, you know, we need to listen to these people about what, you know, so it's bespoke solutions for these children, just as we've done with the case study, and that's fine, and that's absolutely great. Now, from my perspective, that's okay. I'm, as the DFG budget holder, the guys that are sending all these communications, these letters and things in, they actually don't manage the budget, and they actually don't, probably some of them may do, but the vast majority of them won't know the legislation and how it works. So everything they're saying is very sound, but all the adaptations that they're probably asking and things, improvements to the homes they're pushing for, are all probably beneficial, but it's as a professional that we have to make decisions where those benefits lie outside the legislation and maybe lie outside my discretionary spending. Here's just a list of just some of the things that we often, or some of them not so often, but some of them often asked for by various professionals in Leeds. And I'm sure that in the local authorities that you're linked to, that some of these will, you know, you will be very aware of them. The sort of Breakout, well, I mean, they come in a number of different descriptions, but Breakout, De-Escalation, sensory rooms. A single bedroom for a child, so we're, you know, taking the child with challenging behaviour away from his siblings if there's causing disruption or violence in any way. Enclosing gardens, sometimes bits, sometimes all of them. Soft play surfaces, you know, we often get asked for these. Children with pica, those, you know, with challenging behaviour, you know, that again would injure themselves if they were just left outside on their own. You know, they would maybe run in or fall and things like that. Electric gates, not just manual gates, but then electric gates, because, you know, just with the case study that you could drive the child in, and that the child, when you're getting out of the car, the child might be able to escape as well and run off. So we've been asked, so can we drive the car in and, you know, shut electric gates from inside the car and then all get out the car? We've been asked for hydrotherapy pools, recordable CCTV, which is a very interesting one. Comes, you know, we then have to consider the doles, deprivation of liberty, and we've had cases to do with that. Electric canopies, which so the child can shelter. And we have one of the ones, this isn't actually from Leeds, it's from one of my colleagues next door. They were asked for a sunken trampoline to play, and a water feature, calming water feature, because it calms the child down. So these are some of the things that we're getting asked for by the professionals that know the children. So with that the case, it's now that this is down to some of the issues and decisions that we have to make as managers. Now we have three. This is just for the budget for the DFG with myself. We have sort of three sections to it, in a sense that we have the mandatory work, which is under section 23 of the legislation. We have the discretionary work that lies under our regulatory reform order policy, and then we have beneficial or preferred works or educational works. Now, going back to that list I've just shown you, you know, a water feature, what would you put that under? Do you think it's a mandatory thing? Do you think it's something you do under your discretionary policy? Or do you think, oh, hang on, that's just a little bit, that's outside our discretionary policy, it's beneficial. I'm sure that it will have possibly having a calming effect and a benefit to the parents, but is that something we would do under our policy? So every local authority has a different budgetary position. And whilst Leeds historically have had a lot of, quite a buoyant budget, as I like to call it, not all local authorities are in that position, and depending on whether you're a unitary authority, or or you've got county councils and district authorities, or whatever it is, they'll all be in different situations and have different amounts of money. Some will have discretionary funding, some may have limited amounts, some may not have any at all. So just to finish off, in conclusion, what I'm saying is, we all agree comprehensive schemes for challenging children make sense and potential huge budget savings. The difficulty that I have for myself and my staff is drawing that line as to where the work's come, and why it's come into close. Really, we've had to look at this recently, is because while Leeds has had a rather large budget over a number of years, and we've put a lot of money into adaptations, that for me all came to an end when COVID happened, because quite some of the money that I was rolling over from year on year, and I knew the money was there to be able to invest into schemes long term that wouldn't deliver for a year or two. The money that I had, it was suddenly taken away by Leeds Council because they needed it. And I'm sure this has happened to a lot of the local authorities, that we were under huge financial pressure because of COVID. So the money that I had was all removed overnight, and I'm suddenly looking at my budget and all the different things where my money goes in different directions, thinking, "Ooh, hang on, can I even deliver my mandatory work? Forget discretionary work and forget all the projects and little things we have on the go." So last year we had to do a bit of a close down on huge amounts of work. And that's what brought everything into perspective, because at that point I had to make a decision about what is mandatory, what is discretionary, what is beyond that. And that is where the difficulties came in. And those are difficulties that a lot of other managers have been dealing with year on year on year, because maybe they haven't had such a buoyant budget as Leeds. And they've been able to grapple with those sorts of things. And it's been very difficult for them. So drawing that line and making a distinction between what's mandatory and what the council must do as their legal duty, what we can do under our RRO, or what maybe lies outside, is quite a difficult thing. The guidance is around section 23. A lot of the things that we do under for children with challenging behaviour becomes under 23(1)(b), and that's about making a property safe. And just looking at a lot of what we did in that case study, I would actually describe it probably was mandatory work, because of that particular child, we had to do things to try and make it safe for that child. So DFG budget holders, if you think about the way this is going with children with challenging behaviour, and what appears to be a huge increase in the last certainly 5 years, the number of cases that we've dealt with has gone up. I suppose the question is, can DFG budget holders afford to, put into practice these schemes that we know save money, but if they're mandatory work, and that's how you define them in your local authority as, can you afford to actually, spend and put the money into it? So I've put here that this is now tongue-in-cheek. The resolution is easy. Let's just pool all our DFG money with social care and NHS budgets for the greater good, because we all know it makes sense. And of course, that is, I suppose, in a way, is where we're at, is that the DFG budgets, albeit they have gone up again, and an extra 68 million nationally was absolutely fantastic. And this year, I will be able to start discretionary work again. It'll be limited, and I'll have to keep my eye on it, because I must make meet my mandatory duty. But we will be able to do some discretionary works again with the extra money that we've now received. But clearly, for me, it's about accessing possibly other budgets, whether it's social care, of other budgets within my council, or whether it's outside the council with the NHS. Because, as we mentioned earlier, we know that doing these adaptations makes financial sense for everybody, but the DFG budget can't handle it all on its own. So I'm just leaving it. If only life was that easy, that we could join up all these groups and pool money, then we really could turn that money into £1 for adaptation saves however many, 7, 10, 14 pounds I've read, elsewhere. If we could